Hi Stampers, my name is Kim and this is Great Inspirations. Thank you so much for being here today. You know, if you've been with me before, you've heard me talk about my massive amount of pattern paper. And I do have a lot, but sometimes I like to make my own. And that's what I thought we'd talk a little bit about today. And here's a sample of a piece of cardstock I took, just stamped all over it. This is 11 by 8.5. And I chose some designs, some colors, and just started stamping. And I do enjoy that. It's very relaxing to just stamp, stamp, stamp with nothing exactly in mind. But what I'm really doing when I stamp all over a piece of cardstock is I am creating backgrounds for my cards. And so here's one, like I said, that I did. And as you can see, I've used this floral image, the bees, and then a little dotty image that I used for the background. Now this is actually from two separate stamp sets, and they both came from Stampin' Up, and they are in my retired stack. But you can, I'm sure, find in your stash some floral print, little bees, maybe butterflies, or any other images that you would like. And I'll show you some other examples here in a bit. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about how I did this, because most of you can figure it out, I'm sure, but sometimes it's good to just have a little review and just have a few tips, because maybe I do something different than you. And if you have a great tip for me, just go ahead and put that in the comments. I would appreciate hearing from you. So I'm going to just use a half a sheet of white cardstock today, simply because I don't think you want to sit around and just watch me stamp. So I'm going to use some Memento Tuxedo Black, because that's what all of these are the black, they're like outline stamps. The stamp set is like, I thought I had it here, I might have put it away. Found it. It is a two-step stamping set from several years back, and it's called Garden in Bloom. As you can see, it has the outline stamp and then a stamp that you can use. It's solid, and you stamp over it to add color if you like. Then it has the bee, and it has the little solid stamp to add the color. And then for the center of the flowers, there's some leaves and a butterfly and a couple of sentiments. So that's what I chose today to use. And then for the little dots, I bet in your collection you have a stamp set that has a stamp that's just dots. And this one is from Advent Garden, or Avant Garden. And I just liked it because it was a little whimsical, like the flowers and the bees from this stamp set. So like I say, find the images that you like from your stash and just start stamping. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the black and ink up my flower. And I usually start in the middle. You may start somewhere else, but for me, I just find it's easier to start in the middle, and then I can work out from there. And the other thing that I find is I need to remind myself to leave space, not to stamp them really close together. And that's kind of difficult for me, because my spatial acuity is not always so acute. But anyway, we are going to stamp this one right here, and it's okay to go off the page, and as a matter of fact, it looks better if you do. So then I'm going to stamp another one over in here, and let's see, maybe here. And see, that one might be even a little close. Maybe not. We'll see. And then we'll do one here. And I'm going to leave this stamp out because we might find that we need to put some along the edges here before long. Oh, I still need the black, don't I? Because we're going to do the bees. So I've got my little bee stamp here. Get some ink on it. And I'll put him here. And I like to turn my stamp. Some people like to turn the paper, but I find when I turn my paper, I still end up with my bees going the same way. I don't know why. I should say my images, but that's just kind of what happens. And it's okay also to have one coming down this way. I'm going out this way. And then this way. Probably could use one over here. Yep, that looks pretty good. And now before we do the dots, let's do a little bit on the edges. So I'll get this inked. And I think maybe here. Oh, I got some. That'll be okay. And then let's do a little, probably should clean this off here, but we'll get through this. Maybe just here. I have to be careful because I will start getting to, ooh, let's put one here and here and here. I just need to be really careful. So there's that. Now let's see if we need any more bees. Oh, maybe. Put a little half of one here. This looks like something needs to go there, doesn't it? Maybe right here. And there's his little tail. Put a little wing. Now see, this is where I get all, oh goodness, should I put something there? But we'll leave that for the blue dots. So let's do the yellow first. This is a Stampin' Up! Ink. It's Daffodil Delight. And I'm going to do his little body. And let's see, we have this one, and then we have the little pieces. It's a teensy tiny piece there, and a teeny tiny piece here. And there we go. And then the next thing we do, switch off the block here, is the center. And I'm not really sure if this is the correct center for this specific part of the flower, but I just want to get a little yellow in there. So I'm not even worrying about that all that much. I need to turn it the other way though. And we'll just get a little yellow in the center. And then what I did, see my little black dot in there? I just thought it needed a little something. So what I did, took a pencil with an eraser that I had never used, and I just used it as a stamp, and it's rolling away from me. So, get my black ink open. Test it, looks pretty good. And I just stamped, just like you would with a stamp. And this will clean right off. See? I need to wash a little bit more. It's just using the little chamois. It's just water and a sponge. And it's clean. So now, all we have left to do are the little dots, and I'm going to use Stampin' Up! Ink again, and it's Pool Party. I'm going to use this, my little dots, and I would just stamp. And what I liked about this one is it fit. It has a little indentation there, and it fits around the petals of the flowers and the wings of the bee. And so I just would keep doing this and do it over and over, fill in all the spots. And then just like we went along the edges, if there's any places along the edge that need filled in, I filled it in. If a little bit of the dots got on the petal, I didn't worry about it. And just did the entire, all the white spaces here on the cardstock. And then as I kept going, I got this. So I'm not going to bore you by just continually doing the little dots. I think you get the idea. So we'll put this away and we'll move on to the next part. So we have this nice piece of paper, and now we can make some cards. And there are many different ways people go about cutting this up. And I know a lot of people do one-sheet wonders and that kind of thing. And I don't know if this would be a one-sheet wonder, but I can get, depending on my mood and depending on what I want to do with these, I can get 4 to 8 cards, sometimes a 9th one, out of one sheet of paper, just depending on what size I cut it. But what I do more often than not is I just take this and I cut it into 4 equal pieces. So that would be cutting it at 5.5 by 4.25. So there's 2 of them. And then 4.25. And then we have 4 pieces. Now this piece has a lot of the whole floral, a lot of the bees, and this might be one that I would save to do like a full panel, a full front panel on a card, like this card right here. I did cut this down to 4 by 5.25, and then I just added a very slight black mat and put it on some yellow cardstock. I stamped one of the little bees and just fussy cut it to put on the greeting. Then on the inside, just put a sentiment and stamp 2 of the little bees. So that is one way you can use the 4 panels. So that would take 1 whole panel. So now another way that you can use a panel is you can cut it diagonally from corner to corner. And here are the 2 cards I made. So you'll get, on this one piece, you'll get 2 cards. Here are the ones I made. Of course, one piece will go at the top, one piece will be at the bottom. And this is just a strip of 2 strips of cardstock, the yellow and the black. Just put them on and then trim them. Added a greeting. And then on the inside, a sentiment and some more bees. And here's this. This is a border die. And I just put the border die on and of course just cut one edge of the paper. I simply moved it down to cut the other edge and attached it. I actually cut it in half and attached part down here and part up here, and then the gap is covered up by the greeting. And then again on the inside, just kind of did the same images to reflect what's on the outside. So that was our second piece. So for the third piece, oh here, let me show you how I did that. I'm sorry. I told you I cut it from corner to corner. I just lined this corner up and this corner up in the cutting track of my trimmer, or as I usually call it, the cutting trough. I don't know why I call it that, I just do. And then you just cut. And then there are your pieces for your card fronts. So now on the next one, I just cut it in half. And that's how I got the pieces for these two cards. They are, got to remember, 4 1/4 by 2 3/4, because that's what you get when you just cut these in half. So you cut it in half at 2 3/4. Because 2 3/4 is half of 5 1/2. So you cut it on that 5 1/2 side. And then you would have the pieces to make these cards. And as you see, this is what I call a mini slimline. And inside, just like some of the others, have some bees and one of the little flowers. And then for this one, I just put the greeting right on the cardstock. Again, I took that border die, the zigzag border die, and this is just the space between the two cuttings. And this is another scrap of that zigzag border. I just put it right here. And I hope you're feeling special today. Just put a little bee. Then the very last thing I did was I messed up. And I cut this incorrectly. It was going to be 5 by 3 3/4, but I cut it 3 1/2. So it ended up being 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. It's a fairly simple card. I just put some little gems on it there. Matted it with the black. Just happy birthday wishes. And then these are those little blue dots, just very faintly on there. So that was the mess up, and that's why I only got the one card out of this. So that is how I did these cards. Like I say, this is the one that's all by its lonesome. And here are the ones where I cut the paper just in half. I guess in half vertically. And for these two, I cut the paper in half diagonally. And then this is another one all by its lonesome. I just trimmed it to the 4 by 5 1/4. So there are my 6 cards from that 8 1/2 by 11 sheet of cardstock. And like I told you, I just used 3 colors basically on these cards. And I have found that when I stamp a background like this, I keep my colors between 3 and 5 different colors. And here's a sample. Well, excuse me one moment, that one fell right on the floor. Okay, here's a sample where I used 5 separate colors. I used a blue, red, and yellow. And then I went back with that pool party, and I had a stamp that just had some script on it. And this is upside down. There we go, now I can read it. It just very lightly stamped. And then I took a coral color and some teeny tiny dots that I had on a stamp and just added some here and there. And I'll show you the cards I made with this design. Here's one. These two right here were made by cutting the panel in half. And this one and this one are basically the same card. I just changed the width and the placement of the greeting. And then these two, I just used that cut in half diagonally technique, added some borders and the greeting. So there are those. And like I said, I used 5 colors on those. I think this one turned out to be my favorite. And I really don't know why I've been using so much yellow. I just really got into yellow there for a while. But there are those. And the other thing, you don't have to just use images. You can also stamp with sentiments. And I did this. It's a happy birthday. And again, I used the pool party. And I don't know if you can see those little sort of like stars or snowflakes in the background. And I'll be honest, when I stamp with a sentiment, number one, I always stamp diagonally. Well, I don't always, but 95% of the time I stamp diagonally. If I stamp, vertically or horizontally and then down vertically, I have to draw me some lines or use grid paper or something. But if you stamp vertically, you don't really notice like when you're getting out of line so much. But also my other confession is if I'm stamping sentiments, I usually only stamp a half sheet because my hand just gets so tired and I get very bored with just stamping happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday. Although it does go quite quickly, I will say that. But I'll show you cards I made with this technique, only I used black and yellow. Like I said, more yellow. And all I did with these, they are, I think these are 3 3/4 by 5. This one, yeah, they're both 3 3/4 by 5. And I just put a black mat under them and the yellow card base. I used this strip of what I had left over right here inside this card. And then in this one, I just used some of those little dots, but I did them in yellow. I didn't show you the insides of these, did I? Just a happy birthday. I just put the little star. I think it's pretty much what I did in all of them. I just put a little critter in there. Yep. Let's see what's in this one. Yep. I must have been getting tired. Didn't do anything all that creative in those. But I think it looks okay. Just have the little sea star or the nautilus or the little crab. So as you can see, I made a whole pile of cards, and I made these in an afternoon. And actually, there's a couple more I made, but I've already sent those out. So I just wanted to share with you today about how you can create your own pattern paper and then use that for backgrounds on your cards. Now, information about these cards and my process can be found on my blog post, and the link to that blog post will be found in the description of this video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and until next time, stamp happy.